Hello, today is November 6th, 2022, and today I'm going to be going over the governor elections for the United States this year. I just finished filming my Senate predictions, and if you're new to this channel, I have predicted the 2022 or 2020 presidential election 100% correctly. Every single state on the presidential election. I missed one Senate seat, so that wasn't nice, but other than that, they're pretty good. So we're going to go over my margins first. This is safe red, 15 points or more. This color would mean likely red, which is 7% to 14.9% of a margin for a lead. This would be plus 2 to 6.9%, which is lean red, and this is tilt red, anything under 2%. Same thing with Democrats, safe 15, likely, which is 7, lean, which is 2, and tilt, which is under 2. And I'm going to be going over the safe Republican states first, which is Idaho, Wyoming, Oklahoma. Oh, no, actually, that's weird because Oklahoma isn't oddly enough. I'll get into it. Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama, Vermont, New Hampshire. What else? South Dakota? Yeah. Ohio? Yeah, okay, that seems, technically not Ohio, but okay, that seems about good. And the safe Democrat states are California, Maryland, Massachusetts, Hawaii, and that is actually it, oddly enough. There's a lot of likely Democrat states. So I'm just going to get into those first because it makes this map look way more proportional. Connecticut, Rhode Island are likely states. New York, you know, they barely known this governor for a while, and Lee Zeldin actually is a decent candidate for New York. It's not going to be as close as the polls say. It's still probably going to be like a 12 point, anywhere between a 9 and like a 14-point win for Hochul. But she will win. Like another likely state would be Colorado. I'd like to say New Mexico, Illinois. So those are the likely Democrat states. Uh, reason for like, actually I don't need any reasoning here. Oh well, I guess if you want to know why Rhode Island's likely, it's because that is one of the most disapproved of governors when it comes to the political bias in the state. So like it's a D plus 20 something state, but the governor is actually disapproved of, which is weird. Obviously, there's a reason for it, but you know, it's just weird. Okay, and likely red states. I guess I'll go over to now. South Carolina, Florida. I shouldn't have to explain it, but if you followed Florida at all, Ron DeSantis has good margins. He's one of the most approved of governors in a swing state, so that's something to note. And oh, actually, there's another likely blue state here, but I'm not going to go over it yet. Oklahoma, I say likely, even though it's like an R plus 40 state. Uh, almost every single poll that's coming out has the Democrat winning. I, for one, do not believe it. I'm not on copium. I'm actually a Democrat, so as forgive me if it goes blue, and I'd be absolutely amazed. I will, I will. I mean, I won't do anything, but that would be insane if it went blue. I wouldn't believe it, to be honest. Polls are saying it, but actually, there's been a couple polls where the Republican candidate is up by like 10 points, and the other polls are the Democrat candidate up 3. It is really a hit or miss for Democrats on election night. I think even getting Oklahoma within a couple points, within like 5 points, is a victory for Democrats, because that is crazy. And keep in mind, in 2018, which this is literally just a map of the 2018 governor elections, in 2018, the governor map was the same. So, and obviously it's the same candidate that's up, and they only won by 12 points in 2018. It was about actually as close as Texas was. So that is something to note. And another likely red state here for the governors is going to be Alaska. No major reason, just Alaska has a lot of Democrat turnout. Not that they have a lot of Democrats, it's just now that they know they can actually win a race, like the House race, for instance, the Democrat candidate there is up by like double digits. Uh, So yeah, Sarah Palin said she would have herself as her number one choice on her ballot, which is fine. And then she said she'd have uh, the Democrat who just won as her second choice, and then the other Republican candidate as the third choice. So that's kind of funny. She would rather have a Democrat win than her own opponent. So I think that's really funny. And I think a lot of her supporters would be doing the same thing if she feels that way as well. And again, a lot of likely states and lean states in this election. A lot of these states are going to be close, within 10 points. Almost every state, most of them will be. We got Iowa, Ohio as well. Ohio, most of the polls actually have a safe red state. Again, I don't think it's going to be that much of a blowout margin. There will be Tim Ryan turnout. If you watch my Senate video, you'd understand it's actually an oddly close Senate race for a year like this in a state like Ohio. But I do say it would be a likely state just because most of the people who are willing to turn on their party to vote for Ryan will probably or could vote for the Democrat candidate as well. And keep in mind, there's a lot of undecided in this race still. The Democrat candidate can barely crack 40%, and the Republican candidate is getting about 55%. So it's still about like 12% of the vote, or there's a good amount of the vote that is left to be decided. And I think again, if I made an explanation over ghost voters in this year, and by ghost voters I mean people who were going to vote for Hillary but never ended up doing it and voted for Trump instead. I think that now that Republicans have an actual vocal reason, hence the economy, to vote for Republicans, they're not really going to be as secretive about it as they were in 2016. And I think it's actually going to be the other way around with Democrats. So, Democrats might actually have a lot of unspoken turnout. And again, that is not me coping, because I have a lot of these states as red. Just want to make that clear. So, our other likely state is Nebraska. Their actual governor resigned. I think they shot like a bear or something like that. Or it was a completely separate thing. I think the governor that shot a bear was actually Idaho. But there is it's not an incumbent running in Nebraska. And Nebraska Democrats had a very, very good year in 2020. And by that, I mean the turnout. Biden actually won the second district by 7%, which is a big flip from 2016. And the races were just pretty close. Nebraska's first district was actually not even safe, and that's not the district that's supposed to be a toss-up. So, and actually, Nebraska, I forgot, Nebraska's first district had a special election in June when Republicans had or June or May when Republicans had the national ballot, which they technically do have it back now. So it's going to be probably a similar margin. It was actually only an 8%. It was only an 8% win for the Republican candidate here, and it actually took a while to call the race, even until the next morning. So if we have if Democrats have it, my point is there's a lot more support for Democrats in Nebraska than people think. It's probably more like a 42 to 58 kind of leaning state. So I do think if it does vote likely Republican, which I do think it will be by 13%. Still a good margin for Republicans. It's just the general shift of a lot of states people aren't really realizing right now. Nebraska, Alaska, and Texas are some of the fastest Democrat-leaning states in the country right now. And I've made a video about that a while ago, but I might make a new one in like a month or so. Those are actually really heavy Democrat-leaning states, but you'll have states like New York and Illinois that are actually leaning red over the past 10 years. It's really interesting how the generic voting shift goes in a lot of these states. Alright, and my last likely state here is going to be Pennsylvania. Josh Shapiro is absolutely dominating this race. McCormick, I think is the Republican candidate's name. I know who he is, I just can't exactly name his last name. Doug Mastriano. He he can't even crack 40%. It is crazy. People love Josh Shapiro, and it makes me wonder why this race is narrowing up and Fetterman's race is narrowing up and this one's expanding. And I think that is also a reason why a lot of the times when people vote, they'll tend to vote for both parties, but they'll end up just voting they'll end up voting the same party down the ticket even if they didn't feel like it when they started. And that doesn't fully make sense to a lot of people when I explain it, but some people will get it. So, I don't know. Hopefully that makes sense. Now on to the lean states. Maine. Maine's always been just a slightly competitive state that leans Democrat. Nothing to talk about. Uh, what else? Minnesota, again, it's been a competitive red-leaning state, or a red-shifting state, but it's always leaned Democrat for the past, 5 years. Still nothing to talk about. Michigan, also a lean Democrat state, because Gretchen Whitmer is approved of, and no one knows her opponent. It's going to be a lot of party line votes in Michigan. A lot of the undecided vote will go to Gretchen Whitmer, I have no doubt about it. And our next lean state will be for the Republicans. Georgia, Brian Kemp has managed to outlast Donald Trump, and by that I mean he's going to win this race. I don't know how much, if it's going to be a 3-point win or if it's going to be an 8 to 10-point win. Stacey Abrams will not win this race. Originally, it seemed like a good idea, but this is not the year for someone like Stacey Abrams to run. I think she should have ran, honestly, for Senate. She would be a great Senate candidate. I don't see her being a governor of Georgia until maybe, I could see her being a governor in about, 10 years. She doesn't seem like the... My point is, when Brian Kemp retires and a more right-leaning candidate runs, she'll have a much better chance. I'm sorry for stumbling a lot. I just started to word it out without sounding like a dick. Because I'm not trying to be a dick. I actually kind of like her. So, there's that. And I forgot there's another lean state, which is the leaning blue state of Kansas. The incumbent has managed to finally take back the lead and actually extend her lead up to double digits in some polls. She has a high approval rating by about 20% the last I saw. It is not really a bad year for... did I say Kansas? I said Nebraska, Arkansas, and Texas. Kansas also shifted 8 points. 8%? When the average shift in the country was only half of that in 2020 really shows you something. It has actually also shifted, 20 points since the year 2000 in the general election level? Kansas has way better... Also, abortion is clearly an issue for Democrats here. The governor said she would fight to keep abortion, and abortion won in the beginning of August, I think August 6th or something, August 2nd maybe, when that first abortion vote was, those special primaries in Kansas. Yeah, and it was the same day as Arizona and Wisconsin primaries, I believe, actually. Kansas voted about 20% to keep abortion. That is a big margin. If you compare that to the Democrat to Republican ratio, which is about I'd say 42-58, actually, same thing as Nebraska. They really are similar states. Because it's even the cities, just in the far right of the state, there's just this little blue dot that carries the entire Democrat vote. Same thing with Kansas City. It's kind of funny. They have the same exact shape, almost, and they have the same exact political leans, and they're both moderate, all of that. So my point is, states like Kansas could actually be more competitive than people think this year. I think the Democrat candidate will win here by around 3%. If they outperform their, even though the polls have a double digits, again, more evidence I'm not coping. 3% is nowhere near 12%. Alright, I give up. I was trying to finish my sentence, but my head broke. So my next leaning state will be Texas. I think it's going to be around 6.5%. Most of the polls show it being around 7%. I think it's just going to be a couple points closer than it seems like. Again, a lot of ghost voters, Hispanic vote, might turn out for Republicans more than it did last year. But generally, Texas had, like, southern Texas shifted far right a lot in 2020 from 2016, but the general state shifted around 4%. Democrats are doing a lot better in white voters than they used to be, and they're doing worse in Hispanic voters than they used to be. It's the same thing with Asian voters, actually, as well. Democrats are staying just as good in the black vote as before. Next lean state, I'd say Nevada. If you really want to hear me talking about Nevada, go to my last video, Senate. As a Democrat, I'm exhausted and so anxious about Nevada, but I do think it will flip. Steve Sisolak, not the best approved of governor, and he has signed some pretty controversial laws. Although a lot of the things I've seen about him are pretty tame. Like, he joined the Electoral Unity Act or whatever. I don't know what it's called, but it's when enough states agree to sign something where the representatives will vote to put their electoral vote for the candidate who won the popular vote. So even if, like, say someone won Colorado, say a Republican won Colorado by 30% for some odd weird miracle, as long as the popular vote was blue, Colorado would cast their votes for Democrats. Not that that is fair for the electoral college system, but the whole point is that the electoral college system isn't fair, and it's kind of a protest to that. And I think a lot of people involved in that will hoping by the time that that enough states actually get involved in when enough states actually get involved in this contract, hopefully by then, I guess they were thinking the electoral college would be abolished or reformed by then. There is a lot of electoral reform that people want to put into law, and the same thing, another thing that should be in place is, like, the House should not have a 435 representative cap. That's just my opinion. Last three states here. Last time I had Oregon as a red state in the governor level. I think just because if you've seen any of the data recently, again, data is not everything, but they do show trends. They don't show the actual full margins, but they show how races are trending almost 100% accurately. So, like, at the beginning of the month, like I said, Ohio had Tim Ryan winning every other poll. Now J.D. Vance is winning every single poll, and I do believe that I have no doubt that that race is leaning, not leaning red, but at least shifting more red than it was at the beginning of October. And my thing with Oregon is that the independent candidate was supposed to be getting around 20% of the vote. Now they're only getting like 10% of the vote. And a lot of that vote, oddly enough, is going to the Democrats, which libertarian vote usually leans Republican, but I guess Trezon isn't as centralized as the Democrat candidate here. And our next state will be Arizona, and I'm going to be honest here, this might be the last race in the next 10 years anyone would ever see me ranking Arizona as a red state. Kari Lake has looked out so much here, and I don't think for any particular reason. I think Katie Hobbs just isn't the best candidate. She doesn't spend enough money, and she isn't as charismatic, I guess, as some of the other candidates going up. Again, I'm not trying to sound like a dick. It's the same thing with Stacey Abrams. Again, I also kind of like Hobbs, but she's not going to win. That being said, if you can vote and you want a candidate like Hobbs to win, please vote. Prove me wrong. I would absolutely love that. But I just don't see it happening. And our last state that I have is Republicans leaning in Wisconsin. Not really anything to talk about there. It just makes a lot of sense that they would win in Wisconsin. Because Tim Michels is Actually, he's not anymore. He was outperforming Ron Johnson, but not anymore. So it could be like a tilt state. It could actually go blue. Evers isn't the worst approved though governor. He's actually doing pretty well for a swing state in a red year. So maybe he's not all that bad and could actually win. I'm not sure. But I see him losing by around 2.5 points. That is enough for me to characterize it as a lean red state. And this will make the general governor lean. Not that it matters, because governors don't matter unless you live in a governor state. It just points to a generic political shift and a midterm shift. So, yeah. I don't know. That's enough for me. I will come back on the day of Election Day, which is 2 days now, to talk about this. So I will see you guys then. Have a good